So how we're going to do that is we're going to left click the farmer, right click him and go to copy, and then right click somewhere up here in the top of the screen away from everything else and go to paste, and now you can see we have two farmers. But unfortunately you can also notice that these two farmers have the exact same animations attached to them, all the fly-ins and fly-outs and to the rights, and we don't want those to happen with this guy. So what we're going to do is his animations, you can see, are numbers 5 and 6. And you can see these are numbered over here too, 5 and 6. So we're just going to get rid of both of these. And how you get rid of animations that you don't want in the sidebar is to left click that animation and just click the delete button. So watch, the 5 disappears. And of course that 6 moved up to take the place of it. We want to get rid of this one too, so let's left click it and click delete. And now both of the animations are gone, and we're starting over with a brand new fresh farmer here. Now we're going to need another farmer in just a minute, so since this one has no animations, I'm going to go ahead and copy it now. That way I don't have to delete more animations later. Right click and copy. And I'm going to take this little farmer and position him down here with this one. And of course we don't need him to perfectly line up. We can have him a little off center, it doesn't matter, because he's not going to be on the screen at the same time as the other farmer. We're going to have him appear after we had this first farmer disappear. So again, we're going to select him. You can see that the white buttons line up perfectly around this one, so that helps us see that this is the farmer we want to work with. We're going to add effect, entrance, and fly in, because we want him to fly into the screen. Of course, you can see he flies in from the bottom. He flies in a little too fast, so just like with the last one we had him fly out, this one we're going to change his fly in. We're going to change him to going from very fast to just fast, which is okay. And we're going to have him changing from bottom to from left. And you can see he comes onto the screen. Now what we've got planned for him to do at this point is we're going to have him fly over at the goose so that he can cut the goose in half and see if he can find any golden eggs inside. And how we're going to do that is manipulate the way the little farmer's positioned. You can see we've got this farmer here flat on the ground, and that's not what I want. I want him flying across the screen to where he can karate kick his way straight across the goose. So how I'm going to do that is, first off, make this one disappear after having him up here. So let's go to Add Effect, Exit, and just disappear. And then we're going to add in that other one that I told you to copy earlier. Right click, paste. Here's that other little farmer we were working with, but instead of having this farmer have his feet on the ground, we're going to have his feet pointing over here to the right. And how you do that is manipulate the green button that I told you about earlier. You can notice that the cursor changes to like a little curly-cued arrow. And if we left click and drag that curly-cue arrow, we can make the farmer change directions, have him stand on his head, do pretty much anything we want him to do. And since we want him to fly feet first to the right, let's change him to where he's kind of laying on his back in the air here, and give him just a little bit of a candy-cornered appearance there. So let's drag this little farmer down here to the other ones. And of course about right here will work. And once again, this farmer's not going to be on the screen with the other guys because we're going to add an entrance effect, so don't worry about how they're all meshing together. When we finally view everything, don't worry, it'll look good. So let's make sure we've got him highlighted. We can see from all our white little buttons here that we've got the right one. So let's add an effect, entrance, and appear. So as the other little guy disappears, this little guy is going to appear, which is exactly what we want. So after he appears, we're going to have him fly across at the goose so that he can cut the goose in half. And how we're going to do that is very simple. We're going to once again add an exit path and have him fly out to the right. So if we go up here, after selecting the guy, go up to Add Effect, Exit, and Fly Out. Again, he flies out to the bottom, which is not what we want. We want him to fly out to the right. So let's change the direction again to the right. But because he's flying across the cut open the goose, we want him to move very fast. So we're going to leave it at very fast this time because that's exactly what we want. So we have our farmer. He's here. He goes across and collects the egg after it's laid, goes to the store and sells it, comes back on the screen, changes so that he's ready to fly at the goose. So our next step is to make the goose appear to have been cut in half. And how we're going to do that is very simple. Of course, we're going to need two geese to work with. So let's left click our goose, right click him, and go to copy. Right click up near the top again and go to paste. Of course, you can see that gives us two geese to work with. And this goose, for the way I'm going to have it appear to be cut open, I need him to be upside down. So let's once again left click our little green button here and get our little corkscrew cursor and drag this goose until he's upside down, which is where I want him. So let's move him over here to the side just a little bit. They are going to mesh together, but you'll see that this will end up working out just fine by the time we're done. The first thing I'm going to want to do is make sure my goose is selected, and as you can see by all the little white buttons, he is. So what we're going to do is add an effect, an entrance, and just have him appear, because by the time we're done working with our little guy flying across the screen, he's going to appear at the same time I have another little box show up here on the screen. What I did is just took our little background image, opened it up in Paint, and just cut off a little bit of it. When I right click and paste, we can see that I've got my little bit of grass here that I'm going to work with that I took from my paint down here at the bottom. What we're going to do is make this paint cover up the old goose, half of the old goose, and half of the new goose. And when we drag it over to do that, of course that's a little low, we want it to be a little high to show a little bit more of the goose. You can see that we wind up with two equal halves of the goose. Kind of looks like the lid of a box has been cut open, and that's exactly what we want the goose to do. So this image that I took from Paint, just like all of these clip art images, we can add animation to it. We want to left click it, make sure we've got all our little white buttons, go up to Add Effect, Entrance, and Appear, and now we have all of our little images set up on screen. So the last thing we want to do is work with some animation. And you can see I've already added my animation to the bottom. Like I told you, I like my animations to sit off the side of the screen. And if I left click my animation, you can see because I set it up to appear automatically, it's already here in the custom animation area. But we don't want it to come first. We want it to come right about the same time that our little farmer guy goes flying across the screen. So if we left click him, we can see that his animations are 7 and 8. 7, this little green star here means appear, and the little red star means exit, entrance and exit. And we want our sound to come right around where our exit is, since that's where he's flying across the screen. And in order to do that, we're going to have to drag and drop it. So all you do is you can manipulate where all of your little created animations fall just by left clicking and holding the left click button. And then just like anything else that you do on the computer, you can drag it down. You can see that black bar shows where it's going to end up going. So we want it to go right here underneath 8, because 8 was where he flew off the screen. And if we go through and we click play down here at the bottom, it'll give us a whole preview of all the animations that we've put together at this point. So let's click play. See, the goose is laid, he gets the egg, he goes to sell it, comes back. Hi-ya! See his little sound, and the goose gets chopped in half. So the last thing we want to do is set all of these up to go when we want them to go. Because when I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, I don't want to keep constantly left clicking my images. I actually want my images to, once I left click to start them, they go ahead and run themselves from that point. And how we do that, as I told you earlier on the animations up here, the start button that we were going to come to later on, well, now it's later on. So let's go ahead and work with those. So this first one I'm going to leave like it is, because I don't want it to start until I'm ready to click, because of course I would lead into this animation by talking with my students. So we're going to leave it, as you can see, on click. But number 2 here, because they all go in order, number 1 all the way down to number 10, also has a mouse, and at this point is where I want it to start going by itself. So if I left click 2, go up here to the start box and left click on the black arrow, I get 3 options: on click, with previous, after previous. And what that means, and you can see the little mouse picture here correlates with the image here, is this image, this animation is not going to happen until I click. Whereas with previous, this animation is going to go at the same time as the previous animation. And finally, after previous means that this animation is going to go immediately after the other animation, which is perfect. So let's left click after previous. We'll select the next one here. Once again, click the little black drop down and highlight after previous. And notice the little image of the mouse here changes to match the image of the clock here for after previous. This lets you be able to immediately see when all of the animations are happening. You can also see that the numbers change. Because this one's set up automatically, we're only keeping count of numbers of the amount of clicks on here. So as I change it away from clicking, the numbers disappear and that 2 keeps moving down further down the screen, and as we keep going you'll see that 2 goes all the way down to the bottom because we're having them all go after each other. So let's go to the next one, left click the black box and after previous, and just keep going down the line until we have them all set up with after previous. I went ahead and sped my way through it just a little bit. You can see this bottom one here, the 2 has moved itself all the way down. This is the last one. Drop down and after previous. Now they're all set up with the timer. But do you remember our little hi-ya karate chop? Well, we want that hi-ya karate chop to happen at the same time that he's flying across the screen. So instead of having that be on click or after previous, we're going to have it with previous. And you see this one has no picture, and that means it's going to go exactly at the same time as the one right above it. So while he's flying across the screen, he's going to be screaming hi-ya. And the last part, with the goose being cut open, we want this green grass to show up, and this bottom part of the goose lid of our box to show up at exactly the same time. So of course this last one here for picture frame 8, we're going to change that to where that happens with previous. So now both of these go at the same time, both of these go at the same time, and then we have all of this put together. So if we look at it and view the whole thing put together, you can see our timeline on the right side here so that we see what's happening and when. As you can see, we have our animation set up. So if we click F5, which is how we start a PowerPoint, we can hear the violins in the background. We have the little cat here sitting on the screen. We're going to left click to stop the violins, left click to go to our next slide, and left click to start everything and see how it's actually going to look if you were in the audience watching this PowerPoint. And as you can see, this shows exactly what I want to show my kids. They can even see after he's cut open the goose that there's nothing inside of the goose, no golden eggs for him to grab. So our little farmer's learned his moral of the story, and I hope you have learned how to add animation to a PowerPoint presentation. As you can see, it does add you the opportunity to have a little fun with what you're doing. So instead of just flashing words across the screen, you're also able to add in a little bit of fun, a little bit of entertainment, and actually make a PowerPoint more fun. So I hope you enjoyed what we worked with. I hope you learned a little something, and best of luck on your future PowerPoint endeavors. Goodbye.